Well, the story of Skyscraper is about a man who was an FBI hostage negotiator for FBI SWAT, and he was on a call, and it didn't go as well as planned, and things went sideways, and that's how we start out the movie. And I feel that we start out the movie that way to give the audience an idea of the type of character that they are hopefully getting behind and the type of story that it is. And when it goes sideways within the first 3 minutes of the movie, it gives the audience an idea of the great challenges that lay ahead for our main character. And the majority of the story is set inside the world's tallest skyscraper in Hong Kong. It's called the Pearl. It's our fictionalized building that dwarfs the Burj Khalifa and the Empire State Building. And the building is set on fire, purposefully. And my family is caught inside and held captive inside, and I would do anything I can to get to them. Now, what makes this very challenging is that the fire, I can't go through the bottom and ride an elevator or take the stairs up to where they're at. I have to find another way in. So it's a thinking man's character, and it's a story that everybody's pretty excited about. So am I.
What did you want to bring to Will Sawyer, the character that you play in the movie?
What I wanted to bring to Will Sawyer, the character that I played in the movie, was I wanted to bring a real sense of there's two parts of this: a sense of broken Will, and Will in terms of his gut, in terms of his metal that he has in here, because again, on his watch, things went sideways, and without giving too much of the movie away. His men were lost, and he made a vow to put down his sword, so to speak, and never pick it up again, and that meaning his weapon. So I think as a soldier, when your will breaks that way, it's a very tough and compromising place to come to, or try to overcome. And the B-side to that is I wanted to try and inject an indomitable spirit, a will that once was broken, but yet one that's resurrected in a way. And you know, a lot of times in life, whether it's something this extreme that happens in our movie Skyscraper or not as extreme, a lot of times in life, you know, we're placed in these scenarios where you know, you're forced to make a decision, and in that moment, the decision can become very defining, and it will change your life forever. And in this case, the decision is, which wasn't that much of a decision, really, because it's something that he had to do, was get into this building and save his family.
This is you reuniting with Rawson, the director. Mm-hmm. How was it working with him for a second time?
Working with Rawson was fantastic. I really enjoy working with Rawson Thurber because he's a real unique filmmaker. In when I say unique, I mean that he is truly one of the very few in Hollywood who is the sole writer and director of these projects. And while you often have that in projects that are oftentimes made and created on an independent scale, Rawson is writing on a global scale, and you don't often find that these days in Hollywood, or really throughout the years. So he brings a very unique quality to his filmmaking, Rawson does, but he also, what I really enjoy about Rawson, we have worked together in the past. We're getting ready to work on our third movie, another Universal movie, which is called Red Notice. He really, what I enjoy about him is we're able to create these characters that, in a way, flip a lot of the qualities that people can expect from me in my characters and me and just in my personal life and how I am, flip them and turn them on their ear, or slightly a few clicks to the left or a few clicks to the right, where there's a little bit off balance to the character that I really enjoy. We were able to capture that in a comedy called Central Intelligence, and another Universal movie, and we're able to capture that in Skyscraper as well. And also, on top of that, on top of Rawson bringing a really high quality level of writing to his filmmaking style and his direction, more importantly than that, he's a really, really good guy. And I've gotten to a point in my career where, it sounds very rudimentary and a little edgy, but I don't like working with assholes. And I've gotten to a point in my career where I don't have to. And Rawson is a really good guy, and I like having good people and filmmakers around me who are just good quality people, and he's a good quality guy.
You have Neve Campbell playing your wife, Sarah. What was it about Neve that made you think she'd be a good Sarah, and what does she bring to the role of Will's wife?
Well, Neve Campbell as an actress brings the weight, the depth, the experience, but more importantly than that, especially with a character like this, Neve Campbell as a human being and as a woman and as a mother and a wife brings the heart, brings the quality that can only come through the years that you've lived. And Neve has made some really smart choices over the years, and it was a real honor for us to be her first movie, her first foray back into or onto rather the big screen with our movie Skyscraper. And there were a lot of really tremendous actresses who had their hands up for the role. It was a very sought after role and coveted, and there were I had an opportunity to meet and engage and rehearse with a lot of actresses. But ultimately it went to Neve, and Neve just really brought that really tremendous quality, and also we had a great chemistry from the start. I had great chemistry with the other actresses who I met with, but there was something really unique and special about Neve. And look, the truth is, with Neve Campbell, she laughs at all my cheesy jokes. And believe me, especially if I start to drink a little bit, the cheesy jokes can come out. Neve Campbell laughs at them, and I'm like, that's my girl. That's what I need.
There's an old saying in Hollywood that you should never work with children, animals, or Kevin Hart. So you've been working with a lot of all three recently. How is it shooting with the kids? Because they present their own challenges, but they can also be really enthusiastic and great support for you. How was it working with these kids?
Sure. Well, shooting with our kids, Noah and McKenna, Noah Cottrell and McKenna Roberts, they were fantastic to work with. And yes, there's that old adage in Hollywood that you should never work with animals, you should never work with children, and you should never work with Kevin Hart. And I've worked with all three, and I continue to do so. That's why I need therapy. But I thought that our kids were tremendous, and I thought that they really delivered just a spectacular performance. But then, also what really makes these kids special is, they're put in these situations, and I've worked with kids in the past, again, Kevin Hart, and they're generally in comedy settings that I've worked with kids. But in a movie like this, where it is raw and it is hardcore and the stakes are life and death, and every scene requires these kids to tap into an emotion that is not fun to tap into, because the building's on fire, you're seconds away from possibly dying, there's things falling. These set pieces are really designed to be dangerous when people see the movie. So I really give these kids a lot of credit, and I thought they did a great job. I really enjoyed working with them. And here's the thing with kids, and there's a duality here that applies really to me, and this is like the issue. And the issue is, the first half of the issue is you always deal with their hours, because there's only a certain amount of hours you're able to work with children. Mm-hmm. Somebody made up these ridiculous children, labor laws. I say we work them till the sun goes down. But in this case, when I'm married to Neve, the challenge then is casting. Well, if Neve and I had a baby, what does the baby look like? And so to find that really nice looking mocha kind of baby and little kids is not easy. So I would have cast my own kids, but it wouldn't have worked. But but we were able to find them, and I thought they did a great job. I'm extremely, extremely proud of them, not only as their actor, dad, but also just as their friend.
You're a man famous for throwing yourself into this sort of movie for really delivering on the stunts. Was there something particular that you really wanted to get your teeth into in Skyscraper? Was there a huge stunt you were just excited to do?
Well, Skyscraper, you know, when Rawson writes from a place of heart, and he also writes from a place of courage, and he also writes from a place of vulnerability. And it was, ironically enough, over the years with action with me, I'm not an adrenaline action junkie. I think that's Tom Cruise. I'm a bit more reserved that way. I like things that really eat away at my gut and raw, and those are the kind of fights and action sequences I like to have. But ironically enough, what really grabbed my attention was the vulnerability part in this action, because it's the fine balance of great action, extraordinary action of a man who is doing everything that he can to get inside this building, and you can't come up, again, through the elevator or through the stairs. So he climbs a crane and he jumps off the crane. It's just a crazy epic stunt. But the vulnerability part is that he has one leg, and he's an amputee, and he lost his leg when he was out in the field as an FBI SWAT team member when things went sideways at the beginning of the movie. So it was that part that grabbed my attention, just like that. And you know, the character could have easily been written not an amputee, and you know, who knows how the movie would be. It'd certainly be different, but the fact is that he was an amputee, and I come from a military family. I have two very proud Navy SEALs and men who fought in the wars in the past who are no longer with us. But yeah, it was that part that really grabbed me in terms of, because I felt like if we're going to be able to design these action set pieces and deliver where it's not action for the sake of action, but every action causes a reaction, and that reaction is the fact that, so the action, the building's on fire, and the reaction is, oh, I got to get in there, but I only have one leg, and how am I going to do it? That immediately informs and frames the scene, and immediately makes people, because when I tell people the story, oh, well, here's what Skyscraper is about. It's about this, 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 and oh, I have one leg. That's when the reaction goes, I'm in. I got to see it.
You're a man famous for preparing physically for your roles. Obviously, Will presents different challenges. How did you go about sort of factoring in what makes Will unique into how you prepared for the film?
Well, the first thing I did to prepare for the role was really just practice my hitch in my step and in my gait. And you know, I've had a lot of practice over the years because I've had injuries that cause me to limp. I've had injuries that cause me where one leg is longer than the other. I've torn tendons off my pelvis, which caused my leg to kind of dangle a little lower where I couldn't actually move it. It was all a lot of fun pain, by the way. So one of the things I did was just kind of tapping into that sensory memory of how I used to walk that way. I was never an amputee, but I used an amputee, Jeff Glass-Benner, as my resource, and who we become good buddies. And he was the first to climb Mount Everest as an amputee, a multi-time Ironman with one leg, and he was my resource and our inspiration. So it all started with the hitch in the step and in the gait and a slight limp, and I did that for months. Mm-hmm. And you know, one of the most satisfying days of shooting Skyscraper was when Jeff finally came to set, and he spent all day with us. And ironically enough, he came to set on the biggest stunt of the movie, where I'm running across the crane and jumping off the crane into the building. Mm-hmm. And when you're an amputee, and especially a man like him who's used to running and jumping with one leg, again, there's just a certain quality or lack thereof in your gait and how you step and how you move and how you run. Mm-hmm. And you know, as I was running and I did the stunt, and he was the first person I sought out afterwards, and I said, what'd you think? And he's like, you nailed it. He goes, I couldn't believe it. It's exactly how I run. Mm-hmm. I said, great, thank you so much. So it was very special, and that was my prep.